Yeah, hello back everyone. We are still reading Charles Darwin's biography and we are going through the Britannica. I haven't read yet the full one of the Wikipedia. I remember that I actually just read the intro. But the Britannica version has a surprisingly deep level that actually connects the events of his life to his discoveries in the theory of evolution. What I found particularly impressive was that Darwin's observation of massive mountains and earthquakes led him to confirm the scientific view of, I believe, Charles Lyell, that mountains were the result of many, many long-term changes. So, and this is where they say actually in the Britannica article that Charles Darwin learned to become a deep thinker. So here we see, or thinking deep in time, right? So here we see the HMS Beagle. Uh, I find that actually an interesting picture because who would have thought that this is the way they anchor? It looks broken to me, but okay. Um, yeah, again, I'm not an expert. We are just reading this together, and you have the chance to look at it for yourself in the Britannica article, and I will just comment on what I'm thinking about this article. So Darwin began thinking in terms of deep time. They left Peru on the circumnavigation home in September 1835. First, Darwin landed on the frying hot Galapagos Islands. Those were volcanic prison islands, crawling with marine iguanas. Let's just look up. Everything is a chance to learn. And giant tortoises. Okay, I know what tortoises are. Iguanas. Okay, lizard, part of the lizard group. Okay. Yeah, contrary to legend, those islands never provided Darwin's eureka moment. Although he noted that the mockingbirds differed on 4 islands and tagged his specimen accordingly, he failed to label his other birds what he thought were wrens, grosbeaks, finches, and oriole relatives per island. Nor did Darwin collect tortoise specimen, even though local prisoners believed that each island had its distinct race. So then I wonder, where does this legend actually come from? Hmm. Because I learned that even in class, in school, so many years ago, that the Galapagos Islands led Darwin to his distinct beliefs. I think I forgot a sentence, right? Darwin and the crew brought small tortoises aboard as pets to join their coatis from Peru. What are coatis? Yeah, I'm not an English speaker, so I never really meet these. Well, this seems to be this animal. Okay, let's go on. The homesick heroes returned via Tahiti, New Zealand, and Australia by April 1836 when the Beagle made the Cocos Island in the Indian Ocean. Fitzroy's brief being to see if coral reefs sat on mountain tops, Darwin already had his theory of reef formation. He imagined correctly that those reefs grew on sinking mountain rims. The delicate coral built up, compensating for the drowning land, so as to remain within optimal heat and lighting conditions. And the Cape of Good Hope, Darwin talked with the astronomer Sir John Herschel, possibly about Lyell's gradual geologic evolution, and perhaps about how it entailed a new problem, the mystery of mysteries, the simultaneous change of fossil fuel, fossil fuel, fossil life. Yeah, I wonder why he has here a new mystery. What is the simultaneous change of fossil life? I wonder what that is. So I will ask ChatGPT. Okay, so ChatGPT here says that while Charles Lyell's theory of gradual geological evolution explained changes in Earth's structure, it didn't fully address how species appeared or transformed alongside these changes. For Darwin, the mystery was how life forms evolve in parallel with the slow, steady shifts in the geological record, something his theory of natural selection would later attempt to explain. Essentially, Darwin was grappling with the question of why and how species evolved in concert with Earth's geological history. Okay, on the last leg of the voyage, Darwin finished his 770-page diary, wrapped up 1,750 pages of notes, drew up 12 catalogues of his 5,436 skins, bones, and carcasses, and still wondered, was each Galapagos mockingbird a natural produced variety? Why did ground sloths become extinct? He sailed home with problems enough to last him a lifetime. When he landed in October 1836, the vicarage had faded, the gun had given way to the notebook, and the supreme theorizer, who would always move from small cause to big outcomes, had the courage to look beyond the conventions of his Victorian culture for new answers. So yeah, he changed. So this is a picture of him when Darwin evolved, I guess, into a young man with a lot of theories. I think he looks better with a beard. Okay. Yeah, so Victorian age already develops like that what we know nowadays as a suit, I guess. Yeah. How do I get back to the article? Oh, just closing it. Okay. Yeah, so this was the MS Beagle, right? HMS Beagle. So 1836 to 42, with his voyage over and with a 400-pound annual allowance from his father, Darwin now settled down among the urban gentry as a gentleman geologist. He befriended a gentleman geologist. So what does that mean, right? I had a hard time, like, because I believe, who was it? Yeah, Wollstonecraft's father, he wanted to become a gentleman farmer. And that basically just means they have a lot of money and just do something with their free time. He befriended Lyell and he discussed the rising Chilean coastline as a new fellow of the Geological Society in January 1837. He was secretary of the society by 1838. Darwin became well known through his diary publications as journal of researches into the geology and natural history of the various countries visited by HMS Beagle. With a £1,000 treasury grant obtained through the Cambridge network, he employed the best expert and published the description of a specimen in zoology of the voyage of HMS Beagle. Darwin's star had risen, and he was now lionized in London. It was in those years of civil unrest following the first Reform Act that Darwin devised his theory of evolution. Radical nonconformists were denounced the church's monopoly on power, attacking an Anglican status quo that rested on miraculous props, the supposed supernatural creation of life and society. Darwin had Unitarian roots, and his breathless notes show how his radical dissenting understanding of equality, and anti-slavery framed his image of mankind's place in nature. Animals whom we have made our slaves, we do not like consider our equals. Do not slaveholders wish to make the black man other kind? Some radicals questioned whether each animal was uniquely designed by God when all vertebrates shared a similar structural plan. The polymathic Charles Babbage of calculating machine fame made God a divine programmer, preordinary life by means of natural law, preordaining life by means of natural law, rather than ad hoc miracle. It was the ultra Whig way, and in 1837, Darwin, an impeccable Whig reformer who enjoyed Babbage's soirees, likewise accepted the, the creator creates by laws. Yeah, that's interesting because this is like a kind of intelligent design view still, right? And not the mathematical idea of evolution that it's more based on chance. So the expert findings sent Darwin to more heretical depths. At the Royal College of Surgeons, the eminent anatomist Richard Owen found that Darwin's Uruguay River skull belonged to Toxodon, a hippopotamus-sized antecedent of the South American capybara. I'm not looking up all of this. The Pampas fossils were nothing like rhinoceroses and mastodons. Mastodon? I thought that's a server where you can communicate with others. Mastodon? Okay. Oh, okay. It looks like a mammoth. Mastodon, genus mammoth. Okay. Okay, so let's go on here. They were huge, extinct armadillos, anteaters, and sloths, which suggested that South American mammals had been replaced by their own kind according to some unknown law of succession. At the Zoological Society, ornithologist John Gould announced that the Galapagos birds were not a mixture of wrens, finches, and grosbeaks, but were all ground finches differently adapted. When Gould diagnosed the Galapagos mockingbirds as three species unique to different islands in March 1837, Darwin examined Fitzroy's collection to discover that each island had its representative finch as well. But how had they all diverged from mainland colonists? By that time, Darwin was living near his free-thinking brother Erasmus in London West End, and their dissident dining circle, which included the Unitarian Harris Martineau, provided a perfect milieu for Darwin's ruminations. Darwin adopted transmutation, evolution as it is now called, perhaps because of his familiarity with it through the work of his grandfather and Robert Grant. So I heard his grandfather was also a huge fan of David Hume. That's what my professor once said, but I cannot confirm that in any writing. Nonetheless, it was abominated by the Cambridge clerics as a bestial, if not blasphemous, heresy that would corrupt mankind and destroy the spiritual safeguards of the social order. Thus Darwin began Darwin's double life, which would last for 2 decades. Darwin's double life. So for 2 years, he filled notebooks with jottings. There was an intensity and doggedness to it. He searched for the causes of extinction, accepted life as a branching tree, not a series of escalators, the old idea, tackled island isolation, and wondered whether variations appeared gradually or at a stroke. He dismissed the Lamarckian force, driving life inexorably upward with a cavalier joke: if all men were dead, then monkeys make men. Men make angels. Which showed how little the failed ordinand shared his Cambridge mentor's history about an ape ancestry. Shared. Okay, indeed, there was no upward. He became relativistic, sensing that life was spreading outward into niches, not standing on a ladder. There was no way of ranking humans and bees, no yardstick of highness. Man was no longer the crown of creation. This is written well, and I want to understand this joke. I want to really understand this joke, so I suggest we call the Wonder Machine ChatGPT. explain this joke because I'm German. So I feel like in these shows where like someone always calls like a superhero, like in these kids animation shows from the 90s. So the joke plays on the absurdity of Lamarck's idea that evolution is driven by an inherent force, pushing organisms towards ever-increasing complexity of perfection. Darwin is mocking this by presenting a satirical chain of progression, where monkeys evolve into man, and men in turn evolve into angels if left unchecked. The humor comes from the exaggeration and implication that Lamarck's view of evolution is overly simplistic and teleological. Yeah, okay, that makes sense, right? Like there is not like a ladder that we climb, except we go for the transhumanist idea of the singularity. Okay, mastodons, we don't need you anymore. Okay, so yeah, let's see. Heart palpitations and stomach problems were affected him by September 1837. Stress sent him to the Highlands of Scotland in 1838, where he diverted himself studying the parallel roads of Glenroy, so like the raised beaches in Healy. But the sickness returned as he continued chipping at the scientific bedrock of a cleric-dominated society. The whole fabric totters and falls, he jotted. Darwin had a right to be worried. Where his secret discovered, he would stand accusation of social abandonment. At Edinburgh, he had seen censorship. Other materialists were being publicly disgraced. His notes began mooting disarming ploys. Mentioned persecution of early astronomers. Behind his respectable facade at the Geological Society lay a new contempt for the divine's providential short-sightedness. The president, the Reverend William Mawell, says length of days adapted the duration of sleep of man. Seventh length of days adapted to duration of sleep of man. He jotted. What arrogance. Okay, I don't understand this either. I've just sneezed. Wonder what evolution made that for. So somebody could say I just use ChatGPT and don't do the hard work of understanding something anymore, right? The humor in Darwin's notes lies in a sarcastic reaction to Reverend William Wells' claim that the length of days is divinely adapted to match the duration of human sleep. Oh, okay. Darwin found this idea absurdly arrogant as it implies to the entire natural order was designed around humans' needs, specifically sleep. So, like, yeah, of course. Like, there are 7 days, and like there's night because humans need to sleep. So God made night. That's really interesting. Yeah, let's go on reading this here. Uh, mankind, there was the crux. Darwin wrote humans and society into the evolutionary equation from the start. He saw the social instincts of troop animals developing into morality and studied the human-like behavior of orangutans at the zoo. With avant-garde society radicalized, Darwin moved into his own ultra-radical phase in 1838, even suggesting that belief in God was an ingrained tribal survival strategy. Love of the deity is an effect of the brain's organization. Oh, you materialist, he mocked himself. In a day when a gentleman's character had to be above reproach, Darwin's notes had a furtive ring. None of that could become known yet. The rich careerist admitted to the prestigious Athenaeum Club in 1838 and the Royal Society in 1839 had too much to lose. So he was admitted to that. Well, I don't like this idea that we say the belief in God is a product of evolution to make people stronger. And the reason for that, it's a cultural formation. It may be just a variation in humans that has no purpose. I find it absurd to say that every feature that we discover with regard to an animal organism must have like a concrete purpose in the evolution, because sometimes by sexual selection or other mutations and spreading into variety, these things may just develop without a concrete purpose of survival. Yeah. Now, with regard to species, when we observe that one species went extinct and another one survived, and we cannot observe that with regard to humans, we can indeed suggest that they survived because we see that the others were more adept to their environment, the other species. But in what does this adaptation lie specifically? Yeah, probably sometimes more muscles, sometimes a different pack, maybe sometimes different muscles. But isn't it far-fetched to say that our belief in God made us survive? As a sporting giant from the Shires, Darwin queried breeders about the way they changed domestic dogs and fancy pigeons by spotting slight variations and accentuating them through breeding. But he only saw the complete congruity between the way nature operated and the way fancier produced new breeds upon reading the economist Thomas Malthus' essay on the principle of population in September 1838. That was a seminal moment. Even if Malthusian ideas had long permeated his Whig circle, Darwin was living through a workhouse revolution. Malthus had said that there would always be too many mouths to feed. Population increases geometrically, whereas food production rises arithmetically, and that charity was useless. Oh, okay. So, yeah, my computer just went off. Okay. So, charity was useless. So the Whigs had passed the Malthusian Poor Law in 1834 and were incarcerating sick paupers in workhouses, separating men from women to stop them from breeding. Whoa. Darwin's dining companion, Harriet Martineau, who many expected to marry his brother Erasmus, was the Whig's poor law propagandist. Her novelistic Malthusian pamphlet had been sent to Darwin while he was on the Beagle. Okay, I thought Harriet Martineau is a man, but it's a woman. Okay. Darwin realized that population explosions would lead to a struggle for resources and that ensuing competition would weed out the unfit. It was an idea he now applied to nature. He had previously thought that animal populations remained stable in the wild. Darwin called his modified Malthusian mechanism natural selection. Nature was equally uncharitable when the argument overpopulated, it experienced a fierce struggle, and from all manner of chance variations, good and bad, the best, the surviving one of 10,000 trials, won out, endured, and thus passed on its improved trait. That was the way a species kept pace with the Lielian evolution of Earth. Changing Earth, changing species. Okay, Malthus, economist and demographer, best known for his theory that population growth will always tend to outrun the food supply and that betterment of humankind is impossible without stern limits on reproduction. This always reminds me of the stupid plot idea in Avengers where where Thanos just thinks like he halves the population of the whole universe and then we all do better. And this reminds me, so we are now 7 billion people. I think when I was born, Earth was maybe about 3.5 billion people, if I'm not mistaken. I know in my childhood it was at some point 4 billion people. But yeah, it was 3.5 billion people before. So are we all starving now? So I feel like it's absurd. Like, and I think at 3.5 billion people on Earth, the problems were far greater than the problems right now. But who knows? Who knows? Maybe we run into climate change because we're so many, and then this will create huge loss and pain. And maybe Thanos was right, but I don't think so. So Darwin was a born list maker. Okay, yeah. List maker, okay. Okay, so it means he makes a lot of lists, right? Okay. In 1838, he even totted up the pros and cons of taking a wife and married his cousin Emma Wedgwood in 1839. He rashly confined his thoughts on evolution, evidently shocking her. By now, Darwin accepted the notion that even mental traits and instincts were randomly varying, that they were the stuff for selection. But he saw from Emma's reaction that he must publicly camouflage his views, although the randomness and destructiveness of his evolutionary system, with thousands dying so that the fittest might survive, left little room for a personally operating benign deity. Darwin still believed that God was the ultimate lawgiver of the universe. In 1839, he shut his last major evolution notebook, his theory largely complete. Yeah, and I suggest we finish here. 26 minutes of reading Darwin. And we still have a lot to read. We still have a lot to read. And it's an interesting reading so far, I must say. Well written. I don't know what this picture is about. We don't discuss it, but if we want to discuss it, we can do it the next time. And yeah, I hope that some people listen to these reviews and benefit from them. And if they want to discuss with me, then please feel free to send me a message or comment. Otherwise, live long, evolve, and prosper.